I want to announce that the board did meet in closed session to confer with its real property negotiator and legal counsel on the 3 items listed on the closed session agenda, and no action was taken.
Okay. I need a motion on the agenda approval, please.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Item number 2 is public comment on matters not on the agenda. Mr. Wyatt, let's see. Yeah.
Chairman Denton and members of the board, I'm Wilson Wendt. I've appeared in front of you before. I represent Seacon Financial and Construction. I've submitted a letter to you, which the clerk has distributed to you. I would request that the minutes, when they're prepared, show that I did deliver the letter to you. It's a letter which is generated because of some concerns that just arose as we reviewed this particular agenda. Item 9 on your agenda is the flood progress protection progress report, which is on every month. I've been in front of you for about a year now, and we have discussed a number of things. We've made a number of points. We've talked with staff about a number of points. One of our concerns was over a lack of transparency of the process. For the first time this month, the term mitigation bank has surfaced, and that is a brief mention in item 9, the flood protection progress report. We're very concerned about that because we've always understood that a part of the project involved mitigation of the impacts that the Southport EIP is causing, and mitigation of other impacts. But the construction of a mitigation bank is a much different animal than the construction of flood protection improvements. And we feel that not only do you not have the authority as a board and as a flood protection agency to file permit applications and funding applications for mitigation banks, but also the resolution that you as a board passed in December that authorized staff to file the application with the Department of Water Resources to seek approximately $5 million in funding from money that they had available, did not in any way indicate that it involved a mitigation bank. As we found out that a mitigation bank was a part of the project, we went to the application that was filed with the Department of Water Resources, and it's clearly labeled as an application by WSAFCA for a floodplain mitigation bank. Now, obviously, our concerns here, as you move off of our initial shock at the fact that there's a mitigation bank involved, is that's probably the reason that you've gone from the adjacent levee alternative as a preferred alternative in segment F to the setback levee. We don't think, attached as Exhibit C to that letter, and something that Mr. Day will review at his convenience, is our legal memorandum indicating that you as an agency do not have the authority or the power under the joint powers agreement that you've entered into, or under the applicable California law, to implement, plan, apply for, or develop a mitigation bank, and that the resolution that you passed in December, and I was here that day, I think I spoke on that item, that certainly did not envision the idea of a mitigation bank, and the public didn't have any idea that a mitigation bank was involved. We're asking that you consider starting an investigation to find out why that wasn't made public, and secondly, to withdraw the application from DWR, because I don't think that you have the authority to make the application. Thanks very much. President Denton, I'd also like to speak on item 8 when you call it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yokoyama, please.
I'm Hannah Yokoyama Hatch, and I'm representing Yokoyama Farms, also on behalf of Victoria Yokoyama. Honorable President Denton and members of the board, we have spoken and presented letters to the board at monthly meetings objecting to the construction of a setback levee and provided documentation justifying alternate plans that would save our home and fulfill the WSAFCA requirements for flood control. 16 months have passed, and we have not received any new response that the WSAFCA would consider such measures to alleviate the loss of our house and severe property damage to our farm river frontage at 3000 South River Road. New information has been revealed that the WSAFCA plans to create a mitigation bank with the interlevy zone created by the setback levee. We will not tolerate WSAFCA actions that will result in a great profit for the city at the loss of our property and heritage. WSAFCA's application for a mitigation bank demonstrates its lack of transparency in flood control planning. The agency has not shown any clear attempt to protect the majority of the property owners who will incur great economic losses from the setback levee plan. In fact, WSAFCA has made attempts to devalue property values with new zoning ordinances. Such devaluation would allow condemnation and cheap acquisition of private property along the river, warrant destruction of homes, and create new city revenues by implementation of a mitigation bank. The WSAFCA in need of procuring funds shows naivety regarding the ineffectiveness of habitat protection in densely populated areas of West Sacramento, the increased flood hazards of a setback levee design upstream of narrow river sections, and the potential for increased river meandering and severe erosion in interlevee zones. Inadequate financing for the Southport project has been the principal justification for the construction of the setback levee that would destroy our property, but qualifies WSAFCA for generous state funding for interlevee design. We are now aware that the WSAFCA also plans to create a source of new revenue from our loss. Our family has farmed in West Sacramento since 1946 and in Sacramento for over 100 years and suffered great property losses during World War II. Our post-war family generations should not also be victimized by governmental actions that jeopardize our economic well-being and undermine our personal rights. Yours truly, Victoria Yokoyama.
Approval of the March 14th, 2013 minutes. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Review the monthly year-to-date revenue and expenses.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Zolo's not here today, so I'll be reading or presenting the financials. The cash flow report before you summarized receipts and expenditures for the month of February of this year. There basically has been no revenue received other than payments booked for the month of February. Expenditures for February came in at approximately $600,000, with the majority of those expenses occurring for work in the Southport project. Year to date, the agency has expended about $7.1 million, of which approximately $4.5 million is dedicated to the Southport Early Implementation Project. As of the end of February, the cash position for the agency, at the end of January, at the end of February, the cash position for the agency stands at $7.8 million. And that it concludes the monthly cash flow report.
Thank you. We have no questions on that. Under the consent agenda, item number 6.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would like to say that we need to make a small amendment. Well, there's 2 amendments in here for Kearns West as well as for Douglas Environmental, 2 contract amendments. The contract amendments are necessary to bring the total contract amount up to the amount that we have approved from the Department of Water Resources for our grant application for the Regional Flood Management Program. However, within the amendment, there is a termination date of August 9th, 2013. We're asking that that be struck, that you vote on the amendment without that particular termination date, but that's the only change to that item. I'm here if you have any questions.
Is there a new termination date?
So the grant program is expected to last about 18 months. It's our preference that if we need to come back to the board, we're not asking for a termination date. The grant will expend itself and the work will be done.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we move consent agenda item number 5 and that we take number 6 as not a consent or a regular agenda item. And I would move that we strike the date of August 2013 as staff has requested.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. On item number 5, you wanted to make that a straight agenda item?
No.
Well, he did.
Just use it as consent.
We should be on 7 now.
I need a motion for the approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Regular agenda item number 7. Consideration of acceptance of a financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2012.
Good morning, members of the board. Nitish Sharma with the City Finance Department. Today, I'd like to give you a brief presentation on the financial report as of fiscal year 2012. This report, we actually did a comprehensive annual financial report, which is different from previous reports we presented. One of the primary difference is this year's report has a management discussion and analysis section, which provides readers a greater detail of the program expenditures and revenues and the WSAFCA program itself. So this report also has historical data, like in the statistical section. It includes last 3 years of data, and going forward it's going to have each year so we could compare year by year. The auditor's report opinion was clean report. There was no findings in this report. This year we also are having a new audit firm that's going to be auditing WSAFCA. The previous firm audited 5 years, so we're taking a contract to City Council in May for that new contract, and we'll bring it to the board for the WSAFCA portion of that expense. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions? No, mine's all correct. All answered.
I can just tell you, as I read through it, it seemed like a very thorough report. I thought you guys
Thank
did
you.
a very, very good job, and
Yeah.
very pleased.
It is an excellent job, it really is.
Thank you.
I need a motion then to accept the,
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
been moved and seconded that we accept the financial report. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 8.
Chairman Denton, members of the board, it's our privilege to bring to you an update on where we are with construction for the Southport EIP project. Derek Larson is going to make the presentation for this agenda item.
All right. President Denton, board members, good afternoon. So we've been advancing the Southport EIP, and today I'm here to talk to you about the status of the project design and WSAFCA's financial capability to complete the Southport project. And I want to commend you on getting a new clicker. This thing is much better than the previous clicker. So just a quick overview we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the continuous evaluation process, which we implement as we move through an advanced design. We're going to talk about potential funding sources that have been identified, the status of the project design, and a state funding analysis, along with next steps. Where are we going? So for the continued evaluation process, the most important goal of our program is to improve public safety and reduce the risk of flooding to all of the citizens in the city of West Sacramento. We do that through continued coordination we're also reaching out to affected property owners, and we're continuing to coordinate with affected property owners as we advance our goal of completing the entire Southport project. So again, our goal is to complete the entire Southport project with identified local funding sources. We're going to try to leverage local funds and state funds from our federal and state partners to continue to advance the Southport EIP and the West Sac Levee Improvement Program as a whole. And as you're aware, that's the goal to provide a minimum 200-year level protection for the entire city of West Sacramento. In our evaluation, we consider impacts to private property, and we have been coordinating with private property owners. And the whole time, we're trying to position WSAFCA for future opportunities. When possible, we will also try to provide other benefits from our project. So, for instance, our project, while focused on flood control, may also have some benefit to the city with respect to recreation. Usually just using the areas that are already set for flood control. So we're focusing on the O&M corridors that are required for flood control being multi-use. So we're trying to do something for the city on that front as well with our project when it's consistent with our flood control objectives. So potential funding sources in the past, we've talked about the early implementation program. To date, we have secured from the state appropriations totaling $160 million. And those are directed appropriations, and that's the funding that we've been using to implement the North Area projects and the funding that we'll use for the Southport project as well. The state is coming out with a new program. It's replacing the EIP program. It's called Urban Flood Risk Reduction, or UFR, quite the acronym. And we're potentially going to be targeting funding from UFR as well, depending on our eventual needs from the state. We also have recently were awarded tentatively a flood conservation and strategy program grant, and that will focus on development of a mitigation bank in the offset area. The reason why we did that is because that mitigation bank will also have aspects of our mitigation, our actual project mitigation integrated in. So we were able to defer project costs by partnering with the state in a program that has been around now. I think it came out 9 months to a year ago or so, and that's when we came up with the idea for developing a mitigation bank and why we pursued that funding. So now we're just going to kind of step through the Southport 65% design in the strip map. So just to familiarize everyone with the map, on the far left is the southernmost end of the project, and that is where the existing levee connects to the South Cross levee. And to the far right is the northern end of the project, and that is near Stone Lock and the existing project being implemented by the Corps of Engineers, the Sac Bank project. So, starting in the south, you see that we are implementing a fix-in-place solution. There is infrastructure in that area, including an 8-inch high-pressure gas main. There are existing roads, a road there, and homes that we're trying to preserve. We are able to mitigate in that area with a slurry wall, conventional slurry wall, so that allowed us to achieve a fix-in-place solution in that area. As we transition from the railroad tracks down into segment B, we now call B1, the segment that is adjacent, and that basically goes down to the point where the setback levee launches. Do we have a pointer by any chance? No? All right. Well, hopefully you're familiar enough with that. I apologize. But where the setback levee begins to launch in segment B, and I think most people are fairly familiar with the project segments, you will see that we have a setback levee there, and that continues down through segment C where the old Oak Knoll Bend is. Continuing on through segment D and around Bees Lakes by the marinas is a setback levee. And then we have a setback levee shown in segment F, which then transitions back into an adjacent levee in segment G, where we have the existing homes. I believe the development is Riva on the Rivers is the name of the development. So the 65% design is similar to what you had seen in the past. We were able to determine and recommend that minimum berms be utilized in the 65% design everywhere. There were some berms that weren't minimum berms at the 15% design level, but further geotechnical evaluations have allowed us to shrink the size of those berms, further reducing impacts to property. Another benefit is you'll notice the green line out in the center of the Southport area by the project is the Village Parkway. So currently the road is located on top of the levee, and that road will be relocated to essentially the alignment that is shown in the general plan. What is not shown is that we're also contemplating a connection all the way through to Gregory. So from where the rail line, it terminates at the rail line, we're also looking at an extension all the way to Gregory. We've been coordinating with the State Department of Water Resources and explaining to them why we're doing this and the benefits of relocation of the road, including safety and sole use for emergency access. If there were high water events or other type of emergencies, having that road off the levee is a better and safer solution. They agree, and we're continuing to coordinate with them. We believe at this point that we'll be able to secure a full state cost share for the relocation of South River Road to Village Parkway alignment. So we just finished a Board of Senior Consultants meeting where our team of national experts reviewed the 65% design. Their primary focus is on safety concerns, but we also asked them to weigh in on ability to achieve cost savings because they have seen a lot, they know a lot, and we try to leverage them to the best of our ability to improve our project. So I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide, unless somebody has questions on this slide or the 65% design. No? Okay. So this table is essentially a comparison between the 15% design cost and the 65% design cost opinions. And it's for the 65% alignment versus the 15. They're broken into different categories. And we also provide a reason for the differences. So I'm going to go right to the punchline, and that is that our estimate has gone up by approximately $20 million. And the primary driver for that is we have determined that we're going to increase the amount of borrow which we secure via options up to 200% of the demand. Now that doesn't mean we're going to purchase all that borrow. It just means that until we gain a higher degree of certainty of where we're securing borrow from, we're having a little more conservatism in our cost estimate. We believe that as we continue to move forward, refining the design and securing borrow, that number will probably come back down. There are other things at play as well that will likely come back down. The cost estimates for cultural preservation, planning, engineering, and design, and construction management are based on a percentage of construction cost. And that's just a typical standard industry practice when developing designs. We don't believe the costs are going to be as high as that. We believe that those costs will be lower. And so we believe that we'll be achieving a better cost in the end than 190. But for now, at the 65% design, we were able to demonstrate that we still have the financial capability to complete a project of $190.8 million. So, getting into Southport's financial capabilities, WSAFCA is a fairly good position, really a leader in generating revenue for flood control projects. You're one of the few areas and cities that have multiple sources that they can tap into. One source is annual assessment, and that's net of bond payments. So we get an annual assessment every year, and that money continues to build up until we issue bonds. And at which time, then that portion of the funds goes to pay for those bonds. So we have bond proceeds that we secure from the annual assessment. We have an in lieu fee for new construction. We have measures U and V, which is a funding source that is shared with streetcar, but we will be able to secure some funding from that. And then I put in the Lighthouse Assessment District because we were able to use that as a funding source in the north area. So again, previously what we reported at the 15% design is we get a cost share from the state between the 65 and 75% cost range. At a $170 million project, that meant that WSAFCA's investment would be 59.5 to 42.5. So in further work and refinement with the state, we believe that we'll achieve a cost share around 70%. And I think if we can work with the state on a few issues, that might improve from 70%. But for right now, we're just trying to demonstrate that WSAFCA has the financial capability to complete Southport. So that will require an investment of $57.2 million for the $190.8 million project. And as you can see, that falls within the range that we previously reported. We did go through the process of updating our financial plan for not just Southport, but for the entire West Sac Levee Improvement Program. So long as we secure the Section 221 credit from the Corps of Engineers, we believe we're in a good position to continue to advance and complete the entire West Sac Levee Improvement Program with existing funding. So any questions on these before? Thanks.
One question, Gary.
Sure.
Earlier you showed us the mitigation bank proposal and approximately $5 million. Is that included in here?
Yeah, roughly in the cost share percentage, it's
in
included.
there. Okay.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
that helps improve our cost share percentage.
Okay, so.
Oh, I gave the clicker kudos, and it's starting to backfire on me. So where do we go from here? Okay, well, right now we're continuing to coordinate with our agency partners. So that's the Corps of Engineers. We have our fourth admin draft, EIS, EIR. We're looking for that to go to division near the end of this month. So we're continuing to work on the environmental document. We're going to be advancing our design to 90%. The schedule for that has still not been determined. We're continuing to coordinate with affected property owners. We have held meetings with affected property owners, and we'll continue to do so as they contact us to see what we can do to work with them to achieve both our goals. We're working to secure borrow option agreements, again, to provide more certainty of where the material will come from. We're refining engineering cost estimates as we move forward with the design. We're working with the state to secure additional funding. So I did mention earlier that we had appropriations for $160 million. A portion of that is going to go to the north area. So at a cost estimate of $190.8, we might find ourselves in a position where we have to work with the state under their new program to secure additional funding. All conversations that I've had with the folks at the state to date is that there's a high degree of certainty that we'll be able to secure additional funding. It's really, I'll just say there aren't a lot of players in the game to go after that state funding that have the resources that we do and a project that's looked as favorably upon as ours. So I think we're in a good position there, but that does require some work, and we are working on it. We're also now in a position to begin executing a construction funding agreement with the state. Again, getting more certainty over our state cost share and securing funds from the state. It might be contingent upon CEQA, so ideally we'll get a construction funding agreement in place in advance of CEQA approval, and then once we have CEQA approval, we'll have access to the state funding. And we'll also be amending our design funding agreement, and I just put that in there because right now we're at a 50% cost share with the state for the design of Southport, and once the final cost share is determined, they will true up, if you will, the funding that we have invested on the design for Southport, and we'll also be receiving funding from that as well. So with that, if you have any questions? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a couple of requests to speak. Wilson?
President Denton and members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to comment on something that Derek just mentioned, and that is in Table 1, which show the comparison between the 15 and the 65% design cost estimates. Derek stated that you've got about a $20 million override from the 15% estimate to the 65% estimate. If you look at the subtotal without escalation, and your escalation was a negative $5.7 million, which may or may not be true, it's stated as a $26 million difference. In any event, you've got a 20-some-odd million dollar difference between what was estimated at the 15% design stage, where the adjacent levy was the preferred alternative in a number of segments, and the 65% design, in which on most of the segments it's the setback levy. I think if you look at the reasons for that, as set out in the table, it's the borrow assumptions, and that's because the setback levy takes much more borrow material. We've made that comment over and over again, that there's been an underestimation of the borrow amounts. Now, Derek mentions that it's because he's using 200% of the borrow needs, and it'll be less than that. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We think that this is probably understated now. You don't have the funding. You've got a gap in funding there. My suggestion, again, is to reconsider in some segments the designation of the preferred alternative and go back to the adjacent levy, because that is not nearly as expensive. Thank you very much.
Joe.
Bill, I need to say something.
Oh, it's on? Yeah. Okay. You know, I think that as we sit here and we receive all these different comments and everything, a lot of people are out in the television world, or some of you in the audience are wondering, well, are we listening, or, you know, are we really trying to comprehend all of these different proposals? And it really boils down, for me, to just a couple things. First and foremost is I have to protect the entire city of West Sacramento the best that I can. And from all of the data and all of the information that I'm getting, from 15% to 65%, now we'll go to 90%, and I will keep continuing to digest that information. But the best fix for the city of West Sacramento is the ones that our staff is proposing. That really protects us more than any of the other kinds of fixes that I've heard about from all of the different information that's been coming in. So, I mean, I just want to make sure that, you know, the folks out there in television land, that they understand that, you know, all of us up here are just really trying to do the best that we can. and that we're taking the information that we're given and, we're digesting it, and we're trying to do what is in the best interest of 48,000 people, 49,000 people, whatever we are now. And so, I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
I just want to add on to it. I concur with a lot of what Bill just said, but specifically to offset versus adjacent levy. And there's a variety of reasons, why our engineering staff may have chosen an offset levy in different portions. But the idea that an adjacent levy automatically requires less borrow, I don't think is true in a lot of cases, especially if you want to look at where the borrow sources are going to be and the cost of off-site borrow. And the fact that we do have in areas offset levies, it does provide us with a borrow material as part of the project, which actually could reduce costs instead of increasing. So I think we all need to let the engineers do their thing, and we'll get the details as we get farther down and make those decisions.
Good. I agree, 100%. Kim McDonald?
And I disagree 100% with the two things that were just said. One, taking borrow because of setback levy, you're then taking it from land. You're going for the cheapest cost is what you're doing. You're not going for the safety of the community. There's plenty of this good clay underneath the houses of people who have already built. Rip up their houses and take the borrow from there instead of ripping up my house and taking the borrow from under me. They're doing a setback levy that allows you to steal the borrow on the other side of the levy. That's for financial purposes. That's not for safety purposes. How would you like it if you built your house next to a wonderful park, golf course, whatever it is in life that you like? Now, there's a parking problem. So what do they decide to do? They decide to put in a parking lot and rip out your house so that the rest of the community can benefit from it. Okay, not only does that destroy your house, what that does is it destroys your neighbors' houses, because now they have an influx of people 24 hours a day who can use that parking area. This is my home. It's on the levee. I built it there I didn't build it there. I am there for a reason. You're talking again of safety for the majority of the people. I agree with that. But they have proven that they can put in a deep levee wall where we are. The problem is it would cost too much. What you're doing is what I said a year ago. You're using our ground for mitigation, for another source of income to finance this project, for recreation, like he said, all these other things. In this thing here, it's talking about getting landscaping money for riparian habitat in one of your other projects. It's not riparian habitat if you're doing landscaping to it. Yes, you have to do maintenance to keep it viable. You've said, he's said here several times, we are using this ground to get money from other government agencies to do this project. They are going for the least cost. That's not right. I will give up my house for safety. I will not give up my house to put money in your pockets so you can do this project. If you buy my land for $1,000 an acre or $1,000 or whatever and turn around and use it for mitigation for $3,000, that's not right. And that's what you're doing. You're using our ground for mitigation, not for safety. Thank you.
Thank you. WSAFCA updates.
President Dent, members of the board, I'll just go through a few highlights from the progress report. On the Southport early implementation project, in addition to advancing the design, staff is also focusing on the efforts of getting our environmental process completed. So we're advancing the EIS-EIR review. Right now, the third administrative draft is actually revisions to the third administrative draft are with the Corps for review. Their review is expected to be complete April 17th, and we're hoping to, following that the reports will be sent to Division for their review April 26th. The rescoping process was completed, and the comment period ended April 8th, and we've compiled the comments received. The vast majority of the comments were sort of repeat comments from previous scoping, but any other analysis that needs to be done will be done as part of the process. As Derek mentioned, the BOSC meeting was held end of March. The draft report is due from the BOSC members within 45 days of that meeting, so we're looking at middle of May to receive that draft report. One other thing on the environmental process. Congresswoman Matsui is also meeting with Colonel Eady at the Corps on a frequent basis, weekly, bi-weekly. She did meet with Colonel Eady last Friday to go over our schedule for our environmental process and our 408 permission process. So those touch points, in addition to staff reaching and communicating with the Corps, we're also getting some assistance, if you will, from our Congresswoman. With regards to the general reevaluation report, staff met with Corps leadership on March 25th to discuss this idea of to combine or not combine the GRRs. At this point, we're looking at keeping the documents linked but not combined. There are commonalities to some of the alternatives, and there are benefits to referencing the documents, so they will be tracking, if you will, in parallel to sort of maximize those benefits. Last week, staff also met with Steve Stockton, who's the head of Civil Works with the Corps, to go over our GRR process, where we were in the process, our schedule, and this notion of linking the GRRs. And he was very supportive of these documents being linked but not combined, which is our preference. So our preference and their preference are very well aligned. We're still on schedule for draft report in time for crediting with the Corps for our Southport project prior to construction. Still on schedule for the end of the year for the draft report. And the schedule is still for completion of the final report end of 2014. Public relations, Tuesday of this week, a few of the WSAFCA staff met with the WSAC Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Development and Public Affairs Committee to go over some of the elements of the flood program. The things that were presented to them was the status of the Southport project, our efforts with the regional flood management planning process, as well as where we are with the GRR. And then lastly, I'd just like to mention that next week is the annual Cap to Cap trip. There is a committee on flood protection, and they're going to be visiting things such as the crediting reform, the 408 permission process, reviewing and reforming, making recommendations for reform for that process, dealing with vegetation policy with the Corps, also streamlining GRR process further. 3x3 process is in place, but it really hasn't been tested yet, so we're going to be asking that perhaps some guidelines be put forth to help the Corps with this vertical integration process between division and headquarters. And there's also efforts to get changes into the next WRDA bill. And there'll also be meeting with folks with FEMA on the National Flood Insurance Program updates. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Any questions?
Bill? No question.
I just have one comment. Hurry up on that word of bill. There's a committee hearing on Tuesday when everyone's back there now in the House. So we got to get our 2 cents in quickly.
Yes.
I have one other comment I'd like to kind of follow up on. On item number 6, that you might explain that this is not a cost factor to us, that the Sacramento Delta North Regional Flood Management Plan is sponsored by the state of California and they pay for it.
That is correct.
Just want everybody to be aware that we're not spending that money out of our pocket, that comes from the state. To be nothing else, meeting stands adjourned.